Okay, so today we are going to draw our leopard. We already painted our background. We already discussed value. We used different values of orange. We talked about texture because we're also creating a texture to make the leopard look more realistic. And we've already gone over color because we used the color orange to create our background. So today we are going to be going over those elements of art. Line, we have shape. Look at all of our different shapes. So that's what we're going to be informed because we're actually going to be creating some three-dimensional effects also with our leopard. So today you will have, since we are just practicing, you're going to have an orange piece of construction paper and make sure it is hot dog style, not hamburger. I call that hamburger. Hot dog style because our leopard will be going this way. So the very first thing you're going to do is you are going to make sure that you pretend like this whole piece of paper is the leopard because otherwise you're going to give me a leopard this big on the page. So make sure that your paper is your whole paper is going to be the leopard's face, almost like you're creating a mask. So just pretend like this whole piece of paper is a mask that you could put over your face and pretend that you are a leopard. So the very first thing you're going to do is Miss Rucker always likes to start from the center. When I'm drawing, I like to start from the center and work my way out. I have just found that that is easier to do. It also helps me get the correct sizes right, where things need to be placed, and it just helps me to work from the center out. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the leopard's nose because that is in the center of the paper. And if you can see, this is actually the shape of a triangle, but the triangle is upside down. So I am going to put an upside down triangle in the center of the paper. Oh, Miss Rucker, that's not upside down. So we're going to flip our paper over. And I have to use marker today because you can't see pencil up under here. So I am going to be using a marker. All right, in order to do an upside down triangle, I have to make a V. And you want to kind of make it big. If you make a little tiny nose, then the whole picture is going to be small. So you want to make the nose a little, you want that V to be kind of wide. And then I'm actually going to add some form. I could just go straight across with this triangle, but I'm going to add a little bit of form, that 3D effect that we talked about, that element of art, one of those elements of art. And I'm going to curve my very top line on my triangle, my upside down triangle. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this little bridge of the nose right here. And I'm just going to make a right side up triangle right on top of it. So I'm going to go to the very end of the nose, and you're just going to come up, make a point, go down to the other side, just like that. You see how that kind of gives us that little 3D look, like his face is rounded? All right, so the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to place his eyes, and these are going to be the most important things because these are what's going to be popping out at you is the leopard's eyes. So, do you see how I actually have a pretty big circle right here, right above this triangle on this side of it? And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side because a leopard's face is symmetrical. Symmetrical means whatever is on one side has to be identical on the other side. So whatever's on this side is the same on this side, just like butterfly wings. Symmetrical. So you want to try to get as close as you can to the same exact size eye on the other side. So I'm going to come to about right here, and I'm going to just put a big circle right there. And I'm going to go ahead and come over here on this side of the triangle, and I'm going to do another circle about the same size. Now, it's not perfect, and that's okay, because we're not perfect. Just try to do the best you can. Try to get it to look as even and symmetrical as you can. All right, so now I'm going to create that iris. This is going to be the color part of the eye. So you want that kind of big, because that's really going to pop out We really want that green to pop out in the leopard's eyes. So try to make that pretty big. Don't make it too tiny. We still have another circle to put in here. All right, so now I'm going to go over and I'm going to go ahead and do the other eye. And I like to switch back and forth because that also helps me, it helps me to keep the correct size, because otherwise I'm going to forget how big I did this side. If I do this whole eye, I'm going to forget. And if I go back and forth, then my hand will automatically do about the same size. So that's why I like to do it. I like to kind of move back and forth. All right, so now we're going to do that pupil inside that cat's eyes, the leopard's eyes. And you're just going to kind of shade that in. And I like to leave a reflective light in there. It makes it look way more realistic. So if you want it to look more realistic, leave a little bit of it white. So I'm going to go ahead and do this pupil. That's called the pupil. This is the iris. And then this will just be, we'll just leave that color alone. That's the white part of the eye. Okay, so now we are going to create because I'm still in the center of the face. I want to stay in the center before I start moving out. I'm going to create this muzzle. This is actually called a muzzle. Cats have them. And we're going to create this muzzle right here underneath the nose. This is where the whiskers are. So what we're going to do is you're just going to come to the bottom of this triangle and you're just going to swing out. And if you notice, I have swung out about halfway. I'm about halfway between the nose and the edge of the paper. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. You don't want it too narrow, but you don't want it too fat either, because we still have to do his face. Okay, now I am going to create this U shape, and then I'm going to add another U shape inside of that one, and that's going to be the tongue. So we're going to create the chin of the leopard. So we are going to bring this U shape right here, right under the muzzle, and then we're going to put the tongue right here up underneath or right inside of the chin. Now, again, I'm going to add form to this tongue. That little thing that divides the tongue in half, I could come straight down with it, but if I curve it, I will be giving it form and making it look more three-dimensional. Okay, great. So now that I have already done the center of my leopard, I'm going to go ahead and move out, and I'm going to create the tiger's face. So I'm going to create this little like half circle right here. I'm going to start it about halfway up the muzzle, and I'm going to go all the way to the top of the eyeball. And I'm going to do that on both sides. Again, think symmetry. Think of being symmetrical. So I'm going to come about here. And if you need to go off the page a little, you can. If you want his face to be that fat, you can. Sometimes artists go off the page, and that's okay. All right, I'm going to come over here, see? I'm going to pretend like it's off the page, and I've picked it back up right here. And that's okay. That actually makes it look realistic, because sometimes things are not completely centered in a picture. Okay, so now I'm going to create these little eyebrows here. So I'm going to make this really big V, because we're going to have to connect. We're going to make this really wide V right here. There we go. All right, so now we're going to add his ears. And his ears are actually right above his eye. So if you see, we're going to start right here, right above the eye, and we're going to do a half circle right about mid-eye. Right there, and do you see how I'm almost slanting in? So you want to kind of slant in on his little ears. And then, of course, we're going to do one more circle, because this will be shaded in, because this is going to be the inside of his ear. We're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to shade that in. Okay, very good. And, all right, so now we're going to go back and we're going to add some detail into our leopard. What I want to do is I want to add these whiskers. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to add some dots. inside of the leopard's muzzle. And if you ever do a cat study, or any type of a cat, their whiskers are actually in a row. So they're not really just randomly, if you really look, they're not just randomly spread out. They're actually in rows. You don't want to get too busy with it. Just a couple of rows are plenty. And again, it is symmetrical. So whatever you do on that side, you need to come down and do on the other. Okay, so there's my little whiskers. And then I am going to go ahead and put 3 whiskers on each side, but I'm going to slant them down. And it's okay. They don't have to be the same size. Okay, that actually makes it look a little more realistic. You just have some little different sized whiskers coming down off of the leopard. Okay, so we're going to actually now do the leopard's neck. We're just going to kind of have a neck that comes off of the page. So we're going to come about right here on his muzzle, and we're just going to slant back because we're going to make it look like he's kind of looking into the camera at like an angle. And then we're going to come to about the top of the muzzle. Depending on how fat you want his neck, if you want his neck real fat, you can go straight across. Otherwise, just kind of slant down, just like that. And then voila, we have a leopard looking at us. Okay, so now, what really makes a leopard is his spots. And if you ever do a leopard study, they're not really circles. They're more this shape. They're more of like little rectangles. Now, when you use your oil pastels, you will be coloring these brown. Do not get too busy with it. You don't want too many. Do not put them in the muzzle. He does not have them in his muzzle. And then don't forget to add them down his neck. If you want to add some like right up along his, the end of his skin here, that actually looks really realistic. If you want to do that with a couple, don't get too busy with them. These will be brown. His nose will be black. So when we do our oil pastels, you will be doing his nose black. His eyes will be 2 values of green, and we will do this next week. This is actually going to make it really pop out. You will use a light green, and then you are going to go in with a darker green. And you're just going to kind of do half the eye, and it's going to really make it look like, it's going to really pop it out and give it more form. I know you can't tell because of this camera. Let's see if I can use a darker green here. There we go. And it's really going to make that eye pop out. See how that really makes it look 3-dimensional just by using 2 values of green. And then of course we'll do his tongue either pink or red, and I will let you choose. And then we will also be going around his muzzle with a white, just because I think it's going to really make it pop out, and it's going to really make it look cool. Now I'm just kind of slapping this down, but I'm just giving you an idea that we will put some color on him next week. Now, we're going to draw some leaves in the background. Again, we're going to talk about that space. We are going to create space by adding some, we're going to give an effect that that there are leaves. We're not going to be real detailed with it, and I'm going to show you an easy way. We're just going to do some little squiggly vines. And then we're just going to put some C's on it. Just some little Papa C, baby C's. Just like this. Now I'm going to come up here. I'm going to do some C's. Backward C's, forward C's. And this is just going to give us, we just want to kind of make it look as though there are some leaves. And then of course we will be coloring these 2 different values of green also, just to make the leaves pop out. So you don't want to get too busy with it, but you just want a few little vines of leaves just to add a background, like he's looking through the jungle. So alright, so this is our leopard. We will practice him another time, And next week, we will practice him one more time, and then we will be doing our real deal leopard on our textured